Hey! So, it's the end of 2024.
It is.
And we have done a lot of anime reviews this year.
We really have. We've watched so many, and there are still so many we didn't even get to.
It's crazy. There was a lot of quality stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the first time we're ever doing this. We are doing a review of our top 10 favorite new anime of 2024.
Yeah, they had to premiere in 2024 to make this list.
So, we're not going to be talking about One Piece or Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen, even though we want to. Mm-hmm. These are just the ones that premiered this 2024.
Yeah.
All right, it's a top 10 list. It's hard. It was hard to do.
Really hard.
It was hard to do.
I hate ranking things, and I was willing to go for it on this.
Yes. I was like, we have to give people a list. It's what the people want.
People want lists, yeah.
People crave lists.
They need them.
All right, well, let's start off with number 10.
Number 10.
Windbreaker.
It was so good. It was so good. Enjoyable.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about this when we did our review, but when I heard the description of it, you know, like essentially a kid goes to a high school to be the best fighter of that high school. And I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna like this. We'll give it a shot, but I don't think I'm gonna like this. Yeah, I was wrong.
Yeah,
I loved this anime.
It was great. It was funny because I remember it calling to me. I was like, "You must watch Windbreaker," and I was just like. And you know, we talked about this on our review, but I saw the kids and I saw them with their like school uniforms on. I saw Windbreaker. I thought it was about cross country running. But there was nothing about it that made me think, oh, this is basically like, you know, kids just fist fighting. That's what the show's about. We had in our review, we sort of talked about the fact that it was sort of like one part Naruto, one part The Warriors.
Yep.
Basically, this show is just about this kid who goes to this school that's notorious for fighting, and he wants to be at the top of the school.
Yeah.
You know, Naruto wants to be Hokage. Luffy wants to be king of the pirates. And Sakura, the main character of this, he just wants to be the top guy at Bufurin.
Yeah, and you know, what it really is, though, is he has to learn that like, the thing that makes those fighters the best is how they come together.
Yes.
It's the friendships that really make it.
It is. It does all the cool things. Like, you have a likable main character, you have a lot of fights and a lot of conflict, but you also have a lot of teamwork.
Yep.
It's sort of like a sports anime. And I also think the bad guy school are really cool, really interesting. And I just feel like the show kind of like is fun, but also that it feels like it has stakes.
Yeah, the other thing about this show is we ended up completely binging it. Like, I think we watched the whole thing in like
one day.
Yeah, and
the only one on this list that we did that.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that the episodes, they don't necessarily leave off on a cliffhanger for the episode. You know, once in a while there will be two-parters, but for the most part, it leaves off in a place that you just really want to watch the next episode.
Yes.
It's not like, oh no, I need to know what happens next. It's like, no, I like the progression of the story. I want to see what happens next.
Oh, 100%. You know, and I mentioned to like all my friends who loved Naruto, I was like, this feels like a spiritual successor to Naruto because it does that thing where like people are fighting and there's like challenges, but there's also like emotional development that goes on. They even talk about like talking with your fists, which is, you know, that whole thing with like the only way Sasuke and Naruto could really have a conversation. And it's great. And part of me kind of loves the fact that they don't explain that much. Like, it did like the dystopia happened and we don't really know.
But it didn't, because there are kids from other schools that are clearly just normal schools that have teachers and classes and aren't all about fighting.
I gotta give props to Umameya, the leader of Bufurin. He's awesome.
Yeah.
He's like first Hokage. He's like so fun.
Yeah.
And I also really liked both the primary bad guys of the evil school. Yeah, the show is great.
Yeah, really good. Number 9.
What's number 9?
Number 9 is A Sign of Affection.
Oh boy.
Again, this is one that I don't think either of us expected to love.
No.
It's a romance anime.
It's
totally outside of our wheelhouse. This is absolutely not the kind of anime we ever watch. But we heard good things about it and we had to give it a chance. It's about these two people that fall in love. Your main character, Yuki, she is deaf, and she and this guy who's not deaf, they fall in love, and just sort of the progression of their relationship is so beautiful.
It is. Yeah, you know, what I loved about the show is it's not just that it has this great romance, which it does, but it has a main character that you truly, truly follow and you really want her to be victorious and safe.
Yeah.
It is really interesting seeing everything from the point of view of, somebody who's deaf.
Yeah.
And I also think that it's a show about language.
It is.
Itsuomi, he's gifted in that he can speak a lot of languages.
Yeah, he travels a lot and he tries to learn as many languages as he can so he can communicate with the people around him.
Yeah.
And he becomes fascinated with Yuki and with sign language and with like finding ways to communicate with her, and it's so beautiful.
It is. It reminds me of some of the K-dramas that we watch, and that it's always about that primary couple, but then there's also all these auxiliary couples that are sort of within their orbit that are also sort of falling in love at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you've got Yuki's best friend Rin, who's in love with Itsuomi's cousin Kyoya.
Yes.
And then you got her like childhood friend who learned sign language.
Yes,
that clearly has a crush on her.
That was a great love triangle.
Yeah, well, and then his friend from high school that had a crush on him.
Yeah,
and then his other friend from high school that had a crush on her.
Yeah.
Oh my God, there were so many love triangles, but that was the other thing. Like, it wasn't ultra drama in that way. You saw those things happen, and I think every time like the Emma character, the one that loved Itsuomi, like came up, we'd be worried that she would do something really mean to Yuki, or like there would be high drama, and it never really went there.
No,
like, drama was
it was like the most conflict-free anime.
Yeah,
you were so happy.
I was so happy. Yeah, everything like
you're like everyone's gonna be okay.
Well, things were dealt with immediately.
You're right. It doesn't have that sort of contrived misunderstanding that they tend to do in a lot of these romantic comedy type things to sort of like add conflict. That's unnecessary. I agree, and I also like just for us in our sort of journey through these 2024 anime. So much of what's popular in most of the anime that we watch is like, I'm the son of the devil and I have superpowers and I'm fighting to save the world, or, I'm going to be king of whatever. And like, it's always like, it's a lot of combat, which I love, or like guys are coming from space, but it's really nice when you have a slice of life that just feels safe and fun and cute, and you root for these characters and it's not life or death. No. It's like, it's about the heart.
And everyone in it is so endearing. And once again, this was another one that we wanted to binge, I think it took us like maybe like 2 or 3 days to watch the whole thing.
We would have definitely gone through the whole thing in one day if we had the time.
And it was because the characters were so endearing. Each episode would end and we'd be like, I want to watch the next one. Again, it didn't leave off in a cliffhanger kind of place. You weren't worried like, ooh, are they going to break up now? Are they going to like, it was always, I'm just really excited to see the progression of their relationship.
100%.
So, I don't know if it's going to have a second season. I really hope it does, because I want to see the relationship progress. But the whole theme of communication and seeing the different ways that Yuki communicates. We hear a lot of her inner dialogue, monologue, but we see her use sign language. She does a lot through texting. And it's fascinating and beautiful and wonderful.
It is. It's great. All right, let's move on. Number 8. I'm going to do this one.
Yeah.
Number 8 is Kaiju number 8.
Perfect.
See what we did there? Kaiju number 8 was one of the anime this year. There's a few that came in hot that were like promoted really heavily here in the States that people were really excited for. This is definitely one of those.
I saw bus benches with Kaiju number 8 on it.
I think like Crunchyroll did like a really big push for it. And Kaiju number 8 is really cool. This show is about these giant kaiju, these giant monsters are attacking Japan all the time, and there are these kind of like special forces,
the defense force,
and they defend Japan against these monsters. I think one of the things that really sets us apart is not only is the main character kind of a bit of a loser, but unlike every other shonen where he's like a loser because he's 15, this guy's like 30.
Yeah, he's 32 years old. He's failed the test to be in the defense force like every time he's taken it. He'd actually aged out until they raised the age that you could be. And he's like, this is my last chance.
And I just think that's so cool, because I think so much of what we watch, you get so used, when you're watching anime like we do, often, you get used to your primary characters generally being around 16.
Yeah, I mean, especially the action ones. Some of the the slice of life ones, your characters are in their 30s, but generally with something that's more action, more monstery, your characters are in high school, they're maybe in college.
Yeah. And so I love that. So our main character is Kafka, his friend, his best friend from when he was a little boy. She is like the head of the military group.
She's the star, the poster girl for the Defense Force.
And it's funny because I think we sort of assumed it was going to be more like Attack on Titan when it premiered.
Yeah.
Because it kind of looks kind of dark and it's kaiju and like going in that Kafka gets sort of infected by this alien parasite in the first episode. And so he becomes kaiju number 8.
Yeah.
They spend the first season essentially hunting him because he'd show up, kind of like Superman, like he would attempt to be Clark Kent up until like he has to become kaiju number 8, generally to save somebody.
Yeah.
And then of course he's a threat because they've never seen a good kaiju.
Yeah.
Much like in Attack on Titan, they had never seen a good Titan before.
Yeah. It's really exciting. But one of the best parts is every time that it like leans into the comedy.
Yeah.
There is so much comedy.
Good.
The characters, like Kafka himself is so funny. He works in kaiju disposal. He's a cleaner, and it's so interesting that he's able to use his skills from that to help the team, the Defense Force, like defeat the kaiju.
Yes,
It's such a smart way to do it, especially because his actual ability as a fighter is bad.
It's not good.
It's bad, but he'll be on a team and he'll be like, go for the eyes or go for like the blue on the belly or something.
Yeah.
Because he knows the weak points because he's had to clean the kaiju up, and it's fascinating the way he uses that skill and the way that like the people on the Defense Force see. That's really helpful. He's not going to be the one, killing them with a sword, but like he literally saved all those people because he told them the right way to kill.
Yeah, I agree. This is the kind of show that I think a lot of people will like because you're never too old to be successful. Also, two of the most powerful characters are the female characters. I just think it's got a lot of really good things going for it. And like you said, ultimately, the humor is great.
So good.
It's a very funny show, while also having like high stakes.
Kafka is such an endearing character in the way that he makes friends with people and the way that he like saves them, like or jumps in to help even if he's not strong enough to help. You know? He endears himself to all the people around him. It's so great. He really wants to make Mina proud.
Oh, totally.
It's so much fun. It's just a really, really solid show.
It's really solid, yeah. It's funny, I didn't really think about it till now, but like it reminds me of a fun version of Parasite a little bit.
I was thinking the exact same thing. Yeah, because the kaiju form is very much like Migi, where it's a thing that normally would be a threat.
Yeah.
All the other versions of these parasites are threats.
Yeah.
But this one is not. This one works with the human in a positive way.
So if you're looking for like a funny version of Parasite,
Parasite
this is definitely the anime for you. All right, what's the next one?
Next up, number 7, Go-Go Loser Ranger.
Oh man, I loved this show.
So much fun.
It was so good. It's funny because a friend of ours, Isaac, shout out to Isaac, told us about this, and we didn't really know what to expect, but I think kind of the best way to describe this is it's like if you took Power Rangers and mixed the boys, it would sort of be this show.
Yeah, because the Power Rangers, they're not evil per se, but they kind of are.
Kind of are, yeah. This show is about 10 years ago, these aliens attacked, right? And they were all taken out pretty instantly by these Power Ranger characters. And basically the Power Ranger characters, they made a deal with the foot soldiers that were left that every week they're going to put on a show and make it look like that there's still a fighting chance that they could win and the Power Rangers are going to defeat them for an audience. So that's been going on for like 10 years now. And then in the first episode, our lead character, Foot Soldier D, or just D that he's called, decides I'm over this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do this anymore. And he ends up leaving. And from there, the show kind of is him attempting to infiltrate and defeat these Dragon Keepers, these Power Ranger characters.
Because, obviously he knows one side of the deception, but he doesn't know sort of how deep it goes. He doesn't know the reality of everything. And so it's like a lot of it is him learning more about the organization, about what's going on. But
how to be a person, because he's not even a person. He's one of those like gummy things from Power Rangers.
Yeah,
those like little. He's like a little like skeleton looking dude who can shapeshift.
He's also learning how to be a real hero.
Yes,
more so than the Rangers. It's fascinating. I think when we first heard about it, I was expecting it to be like a much deeper comedy.
Yeah,
and there definitely are like comedic elements, but a lot of the comedy is more of a dark comedy.
It is,
and the show like it's fun, but it's deep and it's dark and it's just really well done, and really like the storytelling is really solid.
It is, and what I like about this show is it's really about power, and it's very much about not just siding with a human because they're a human against an alien, looking at like these greedy dark forces are sort of oppressing a group of people, and these people are fighting back. I mean, it's very much like Attack on Titan, but Attack on Titan's a little easier because like Eren and all the people of all the leads of Attack on Titan are still people.
Yeah.
Where D, of course, is this shape-shifting alien thing. You sympathize with him, but even like his goal is still to like take over the Earth.
Yeah.
Even though he's like kind of so pathetic, it's never gonna happen. You root for him because the Dragon Keepers suck so bad.
He's also so vulnerable.
He is.
Like, so
because he's a child, basically.
Well, not even just that, but also as this like gummy soldier, he is so vulnerable to injury.
Yes, he is.
He has to avoid getting injured at all costs, like
because people will see that he's not Hibiki.
And he can get hurt so easily, and he can reform.
Yeah.
But he will be found out if a knife touches him.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's funny. So it's cool because there's things about it that kind of remind me of like Infernal Affairs, which was remade into The Departed, because it's got that undercover thing.
Yeah.
But also it just like the way he fights, reminds me of back like before Naruto was just unstoppable, back when he had to be the number one most unpredictable ninja. And I love that. I love a hero that has to use his wits and his wiles, sort of like Constantine or something, in order to win. I always think that's interesting.
For sure. And then, just another little thing about this, for both Go-Go Loser Ranger and actually for Kaiju number 8 as well.
Yeah.
The opening credits.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. It's
so good.
There are some shows that you're watching and you never skip the opening credits.
Yes.
Both of those, Kaiju number 8 and Go-Go Loser Ranger, we never skip the opening credits. I think Go-Go Loser Ranger, we also never skip the end credits.
The end credits was also awesome. That dance scene.
Oh my God.
So good.
So good.
Yeah.
So well, the music was great, and just the animation that they did for both the opening and closing, so good. Yeah. So worth watching.
I think we watched this one on Hulu, and it's really worth watching. Yeah. It's really, really good, and I feel like it didn't quite get its American audience.
Yeah.
And it bums me out because it's great.
Go-Go Loser Ranger. It is absolutely worth watching.
So good. Okay, number 6 is Brave Bang Braverin. So we just put up the review for this not that long ago, and this show is wild.
Yeah.
I would say, I don't know if it's the craziest show that we saw this year, but it's kind of close. Essentially,
and
unexpected. So essentially, like, it is a show where the Japanese and American militaries that have these robo suits, they're just doing field exercises in Hawaii, and all of a sudden, out of a portal, this giant alien ship shows up, drops a bunch of evil killer aliens, and they get massacred. Yeah. It's like the first 15 minutes of Saving Private Ryan. There's no hope. Yeah. And then out of nowhere, this fantastic sort of Voltron meets Optimus Prime mech alien shows up named Braverin.
Oh my God. Super pumped.
He's super pumped. He shows up and he saves the day. And that's where Brave Bang Braverin really starts. Yeah. And where it just continues to get more wild. Yeah. This show is so much fun.
It is so much fun. This falls into that category of, a genre that we're generally not into. We have trouble getting into mech anime.
Yeah.
And so the fact that we fell in love with this one so quickly says a lot for it. The characters are fantastic. The relationships are great. And things happen that you just don't expect at every moment.
Yeah, no, it's really wild. And like, I think the relationship between Isami, the Japanese pilot, and Lewis Smith, the American pilot, is really awesome. And I also think the relationship between Isami and Braverin is crazy.
Yeah.
It's so fun. Like, Braverin is like, he's like, I need you inside me, Isami. We need to do this. And it's so fun and it's so funny and it's fearless.
Yeah.
You know, it really does. It kind of plays with what your conceptions of what a mecha anime and even an anime in general is going to be. I really think like it was to me probably the biggest surprise of the year is how much I like this one.
Yeah, I mean, again, you know, the way that comedy is interspersed with it, the way that the relationships go, the bizarre like sexual innuendos that happen,
a lot of them.
Like they're clearly meant to be that way, and it's fun and funny.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I really love is the death drives.
Yes.
I love that they're like the evil robots that come down, right? I love they all have their own distinct personality. I love how weird and dark they are and human they are. And they're not the Daleks of the Borg. No. They're not like, we must assimilate. They're like, they have these weird personalities.
Well, they sort of have like 7 deadly sin aspects. Like each one a different sort of deadly sin aspect.
Yeah, but they like seem just like they're very like esoteric and weird and they all kind of want to die. And it's like they're kind of like a death call. It's like so interesting. Like I just found myself like constantly engaged with the show, wondering what's happening, but not in a way of like annoyance, more of like surprise and excitement. They're unfolding this mystery box. And I loved it.
Yeah, this is one that is not based on a manga.
No.
It was a purely original one, and it's one of those that like it is a complete story.
Yeah.
You know, so you're not gonna have to worry about like waiting many seasons or, you know, seeing where like season 12 is going to be. Like, you watch a full story in this season, and it's fantastic.
All right, well, Brave Bang Braver, I think that one we watched on Crunchyroll.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it's anywhere else, but it's a good time.
It is. Next up, number 5, Solo Leveling.
Oh, man. This show, I have never seen an anime, like, have so much hype going into its release, which I think, in a way, actually maybe hurt this show, because I think the expectations were so high that it was almost like if it wasn't the best show ever, it would just be kind of mid.
Well, you know, it's an interesting thing because the Korean webtoon that it's based on was super popular.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a great story, and people were expecting so much of the anime that they made of it. The pilot was blow your mind good.
Amazing. Yeah.
They went all out in the pilot. The first couple episodes, same thing. It just kept getting better and better. We discussed when we watched Solo Leveling Reawakening, and we saw that in the theater, that there's that episode 7.5.
I think 7.5, yeah.
That was such a fail and just made people so angry that they, like, some people just stopped watching it at that point. And it was because they literally took an episode, and instead of it just being a side thing or even letting people know that it would be a wrap-up, they literally just wrapped up the first six, 7 episodes. Yeah. And it made people so angry that it just hurt the show in general. You know, a lot of people are saying that it fell off, you know, in the second half. But when we watched Reawakening, and it sort of gave that wrap up of the end of season 1 and the first 2 episodes of season 2, there was a reminder of just how good the end of season 1 really was. You know, it was a lot stronger than I think either of us were really remembering it as.
Yeah, no, I think it's hard when everyone's like, this is going to be the best show of the year.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, then it's sort of like your rank, it's like, well, you're starting here, so it can only go down.
That's true.
It takes place in Korea. All these portals sort of open up out of nowhere. These gates.
Yeah.
They open up to these different sort of dungeons that exist with all these monsters in it.
And in theory, that's happening all over the world, but we're focused on Korea, on our characters that are all in Korea.
Now, at the same time, when these gates opened, all the people of the world, or a lot of the people of the world rather, they unlocked these powers that never existed before. And the powers are, of course, ranked. So if you are if you're like super, super powerful, you're an S rank, then it goes down to A. The lowest rank, which you shouldn't be anywhere near a gate, is E, which of course our main character, Jiwoo, is an E.
Yeah.
Basically, corporations sort of fund these hunters to go in, gather resources,
and defeat the dungeon.
So that they can close the portal so that these monsters don't come out of the portal and start hurting innocent civilians. I think what makes this show really interesting is it's almost a bit of like a reverse isekai.
Yeah.
Because like your main character essentially is a superpowered isekai character. It just he happens to be in the real world, and he is the one who has changed internally while everybody else is sort of like business as usual.
Yeah, in that pilot episode, it's one of those where you think he's going to like die. Like, wait, is he not our main character?
Yeah.
But it ends up being that the system comes into play, and that's not a thing that's happened with anyone else ever. No one else seems to like experience the system, but it totally changes him. It changes his dynamic, how he works with the dungeons, and
he essentially dies, essentially, and then is reawakened, and then all of a sudden, this system you're talking about is he sees like all these panels.
Like a video game.
All of a sudden he sees like, I have this much strength, I have this much intelligence, and he has an inventory that like, exists in another dimension that he can pull things from.
I don't know if you mentioned this before, but when people are awakened with their powers, that can't change. You can't level up.
Yeah.
And that's just a thing of the world. That is just a known fact.
Like if you're an A rank, you can, no matter how much you train, you'll never be an S rank.
The most that can happen is every once in a while someone does reawaken, and they might reawaken at a higher power, but then they'll remain at that power. You can't keep leveling up. It's just not a thing. But Ji-woo, he's special with the system.
Special one,
He's able to level up. But also, it doesn't show up in like the power rankings the way that other people do.
Yeah.
And it's this fascinating thing, and he's always trying to hide this strength, this power that he has. He also, because it doesn't, like, it's not the same as normal people, he also has no clue of how powerful he actually is.
Yes.
He doesn't realize how strong he is. He's always assuming he's way weaker than he is.
Yeah.
And he ends up making friends because he helps save people, all while trying to hide that he's as able as he is now.
It's true, but I think the thing that I love about this show that separates it from everything else, I think in a lot of these cases where someone's sort of reawakened and they have these powers, whether it be The Matrix or My Hero Academia, even like Captain America given the serum, these people become even greater heroes.
Yeah.
Usually because they either have, something inside of them that they are like very heroic, or generally they have a support base. Like Neo had Morpheus and Trinity and everything like that. What's cool about soul leveling is he doesn't have that.
No.
So, and he was so weak, and the world is kind of corrupt.
Yeah.
That he's actually turning more and more into a villain and a darker character as it goes on, as opposed to he's kind of going more the Eren Yeager route than the Deku route, which I find fascinating because it is so contrary to a lot of the anime we watch.
Yeah, and how much of a villain is he? It's debatable, but he definitely goes darker.
He's not becoming a better person.
No. That being said, his morals were only attached to what he could do previously. He never had the ability to do more than he did. He was in those dungeons to do what he could, but like he just went with whatever ability he had, but it didn't mean that he was ever going to be like a hero, that he was ever thinking of himself as a hero. He was thinking of himself as a guy trying to survive, trying to support his little sister.
Well, I think that the trauma of being abandoned and murdered in the first two episodes altered his personality.
And this is a kid who, his mom is in a coma, in some sort of like weird coma. His dad, sometime around the time that the dungeons started showing up, disappeared, and they have no idea where he is. He has been raising his little sister, who he just wants to help see succeed. But that's another thing. Like throughout the whole thing, he's still focused on that. That's one of those touch points for him. One of those sort of moral touch points that he still holds to, that keeping it, like making sure that his sister's doing okay.
I love this show, but I will say of everything on this list, I think this is the one I'm most excited for season 2.
Well, I mean,
part of it is we've already seen the first 2 episodes because we saw the film.
Amazing.
We saw the film Reawakening, which you should watch our review. But like I'm so excited to see his journey.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to see how powerful he gets. I'm so excited to see if he goes to the dark side or if he ends up being sort of like saved. You know,
I'm excited to see there are characters that we met in like earlier on that like some of the S ranks that you meet very briefly that he's clearly going to have to be interacting with as the seasons go on. I'm excited to see how that happens and how he ends up working with them, especially like how long is he going to be able to hide his power?
It's not going to be much longer. No. Listen, 7.5 be damned. I think the show's amazing, and I'm really stoked for more.
For sure. On to number 4.
What's number 4?
Delicious in Dungeon.
Wow. Another, for me at least, big surprise of the year was how great this show was.
It was so great. And by the way, I think like the top 4 are so debatable as to where they go. Like it was particularly tough.
But if we don't rank things, what are we even doing
people,
here?
You know, how can people survive?
People will freak out.
Yeah. So yeah, it was such a surprise. In part, I think because it was on Netflix.
Yeah, I think because up until very recently, Crunchyroll was like the king of this, but slowly but surely, Netflix is pulling in these these original anime. And this is a bit of a Crunchyroll killer, this show.
Yeah, it really is. And like besides the fact that it was on Netflix and that was like, this is odd, the fact that the show is, even though it's a like going into dungeons, defeating monsters show, cooking is the main focus.
Yes.
And that's so strange. You know, it's not like Shokugeki no Soma, Food Wars, where they're in a cooking school and you're like learning like actual cooking skills.
Yeah.
Like, you are learning cooking skills, but you know, a cooking with chicken is very different than, you know, cooking with some sort of chicken-esque monster.
Well, it's cool because I think what the alchemy of Delicious in Dungeon is, it has all that fantasy stuff you would love, like swords and armor and magic, like all that sort of like Lord of the Rings stuff. But then it's got all that kind of fun, interesting, like this is how you cook stuff that we'll get in Shokugeki no Soma or Campfire Cooking or something like that. And the way that they meld the two together is just, it's a pleasure. I love this show. I love that it opens with them at the bottom of the dungeon, fighting the dragon, losing, and Laos, her main character, he says his internal monologue is, "I'm so hungry." Yeah. Like, and they're starving at this point, fighting this dragon, and then his sister gets eaten by the dragon, and then they have to escape the dungeon, and now like they got to go back because they got to save her, right? But the issue is, it's way far down this dungeon to get to that dragon, and they don't have money. Yeah. They don't have money to find more people. They don't have money to buy food. Nope. But also, the sister, she's going to get dissolved and digested in that dragon, so they got to go. So the concept of this show is it's a dungeon raid where they're going through this dungeon, but they need to kill and eat. Yeah. They're not bringing food with them. And
that's not a thing people normally do in that world. Yeah. They go out, they go to like the stores or whatever, they buy food or grow crops, but you don't eat the things in the dungeon.
No.
Well, they do.
They do. And that's what makes it so interesting is you have the lead Laos, who's a human warrior. Mm-hmm. Then you have Arcel, who is an elf, so she's the magic one. Chilchuck, who is like a halfling, who basically is their thief. And they're all going in to save Fallon. But
Laos's sister,
Laos's sister,
who is also, she is an expert in magic, and she's the reason that they were able to get out of the dungeon when she got eaten.
But also, keep in mind that they lost 2 party members, too. Yeah. So then they're in there kind of like the main, like basically the lobby of the dungeon before they get there. And they meet this kind of weird sort of like out there dwarf named Senshi. They kill something and they want to eat it. And he's like really interested in wanting to eat dungeon food. Yeah. And then he decides to go along with them. And in a way, it's like this really cute adventure where like, they're all going to get Fallon, but they also have Senshi, who's like really interesting and is sort of an expert in the dungeon, but an expert in cooking in the dungeon. Yeah. And it's like this fun show, man.
And just like the things that are important to all of them. And for Senshi, it's always cooking. For Laos, he needs to find his sister, but he also becomes obsessed with the cooking.
He does. Because Laos is he's like a monster otaku. Yes. Like he's so like such a fanboy about these monsters, but he also really wants to eat them. It's funny, actually. It's a bit like Toriko.
Yeah.
And I love all these characters.
Absolutely.
I love Laos.
So endearing.
I love Senshi. I loved all the memes of Senshi laying around.
Oh my God, yes.
You know, like he's a model. But I think the other thing I loved about the show, and it's, you know what's so funny? We watched the show when it was on. It was months ago. We haven't really even done any research on it since, but it's all coming back to me because it was so good.
It was, it's still so vivid in my mind.
But the thing I love about it is, you know, once I thought I knew what this show was, you know, it's like, okay, they're going to fight this monster this episode, and they're going to, like, eat it, and it's going to be funny, and then there's going to be another episode. Like, once I thought they got, all of a sudden, it takes this turn, and it gets really dark, and it gets really serious. And I was like, oh, wow. This is a lot more than I was expecting.
Well, you hit it like a series of episodes, and you're like, they haven't even brought Phelan up. Like, remember she's digesting? Don't they need to get there?
Yeah, at some point you're
and at some point they do tell us why it's not necessarily like needed that they go super fast, but it's still, so when they hit that twist, it's like, it was the perfect timing for that to happen, and it makes it so interesting. The storytelling is so interesting, and and it left off in a place where I'm like, I need season 2.
Oh, 100%. I am so stoked for season 2. I think that this show was a hit for Netflix. I think the art style is really unique and interesting, and I think the action is cool, the humor is great, the characters are great. I mean, everything about it. I also think they did that one thing that Breaking Bad did back in the day, where like they had one episode that felt like filler, but it was actually essential to the storyline, but you don't know it till later, and it's so exciting because part of me is like, should I just skip this? Like, what's happening? You know, like, but it's like it's actually really essential, and I just think that like the writing is at such a high degree, but it's not so esoteric that you're taken out of it because it's too like kind of like, for instance, we're not really gonna talk about it, but Metallic Rouge, which we watched this year, I loved it. But the writing is so kind of like...
so philosophical, so deep.
So, yeah, it was just like so dense that I was just like, I don't know about this. And this show kind of like, you always have something you can hold on to. And I really love it.
Yeah.
All right.
We're up to the top 3.
Woo! This is exciting. So, I would just like to state for the record that we knew for months what number 1 was going to be.
Yeah.
But 2 and 3 has been a battle between you and I.
And honestly, Delicious in Dungeon, in theory, could have been top 3.
Yes, but it's a strong year, okay? Yeah. So I will say that number 3, for me, was number 2. But you made such a good case for number 2. Yeah. I acquiesced. And I also think our number 3... honestly, for most of the anime public, right now is probably number 1 of the year.
Yeah.
But alas, we watch so many.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the people that love this show the most, like, probably watch, like, a handful of anime this year. So our number 3 of 2024 is Don 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 Don. It's Don Don. This show is awesome.
It is.
This show is so great.
Yeah, I think a big part of why it, like you said, would be on a lot of people's number 1 is A, it's awesome. Yeah. B, it's also so recent.
This had the excitement I think Solo Leveling Kaiju number 8 hoped they would have. It's cool, it's funny, it's exciting, the animation's top tier.
Had a great opening song.
Yeah, it's got that like teen, like, angsty like thing.
Has cute romance.
Yeah, it's got all the stuff. Like, this show is, it's got likable characters. Yeah. It's got monsters. It's like a less shonen, less dark version of like Jujutsu Kaisen. Yeah. I think it's got like maybe the 2 most likable leads of the year, anime-wise. Momo and Ken, also known as Okarun. And I think Momo is like,
she feels so real. She just feels like a real high school student. The biggest thing about her is that she grew up essentially like in a temple kind of, because and her grandmother that she grew up with like is very into the occult.
What I love about Momo is it's one of those great examples of a female character that doesn't feel like she was written like, this is what girls think. This is how girls act. Like, a lot of what she does and what she says could have been said by a man.
Yeah. We have a male and a female lead, and the majority of the time, Momo, the female lead, is not the one being saved. Okarun is the damsel in distress, and she's saving him.
Oh, she is the aggressor. When it comes to the situation usually at hand, and I just love their relationship. I love that they're best friends. I love that they're sort of partners.
Your two main characters, Okarun, he loves aliens. He loves conspiracy theories, what they have to do with aliens. He fully believes that aliens are out there, and he hopes someday they'll come and be his friend.
Yes, that's exactly the plot of his character. Momo, I always forget about and be his friend. Because he has no friends.
Momo, she is a normal high school girl. She really wants a boyfriend, but like a good guy. She wants a guy that's just like the actor Ken Takakura, who is kind of awkward. And probably also handsome, but kind of awkward. But a nice guy. And so like her thing is that she believes in ghosts because, like we said, her grandmother is an exorcist. She truly believes that ghosts are real, that they exist. The two of them come together, have a big debate over, like, do aliens exist? Do ghosts exist? One exists, not the other. They each believe their own thing, and they're both going to prove each other wrong. Okarun's going to go to a really haunted place. Momo's going to go to a place where alien sightings happen. And this is all in, like, the pilot episode. We find out that both aliens and ghosts are real. Both of them get attacked. Both of them have to save each other. And the series progresses where, like, they have both sort of awakened powers because of dealing with the aliens and the ghosts. And it's so fun to watch the characters as they grow, as their powers grow, as they deal with the threat of aliens invading, as they deal with the threats of ghosts attacking people. And the questions of, wait, are aliens and ghosts the same? And it's...
Because generally in anime, it's either or, right? Like they're either fighting aliens or they're fighting ghosts. But like you don't really mix sci-fi and supernatural that much.
And it's a fun thing.
What's going on? You want to talk about Don? You want to come here and talk about Don?
Are you gonna come play?
Boomer, come here. Here,
Are you gonna be Turbo Granny?
Yeah.
We get to meet Momo's grandma, who is just so funny.
She is.
She is their expert on the occult. She doesn't necessarily know about aliens, but she certainly knows about ghosts.
She doesn't believe in aliens. Just like Momo didn't.
And the ghost that poor Okarun had to fight, that stole his balls. That he has to get back throughout the course of the show. There's a spirit that gets trapped in a lucky cat that then becomes a character that's like mocking them a lot of the time.
So funny.
And working with them at other times. The animation is crazy and really cool. There's so much to it.
I agree. I think it's really funny. It's really daring. I think the animation is maybe the best of the year, to be honest.
It is very tropey, but purposefully. Like, alien tropes are at their highest. Like a lot of ghost things that happen are things you see all over the place, but they do it for the purpose of playing with the tropes.
I also like the fact that the show isn't afraid to offend people. I feel like they kind of do what they want. They kind of have fun, and it offends people, but that's okay because, like, it's okay to be offended. Except the cat. It's not okay for the cat to be offended.
Oh, is it okay to be offended?
One of the best parts about the show is also one of the biggest problems with the show. It's that it's in so many ways indescribable. But the show had one of the best, I think, episodes of an anime this year.
Episode 7 was it?
I think it was. Yeah.
Which is kind of like a very... It's like everything shut down to get real serious and real dark.
For one episode.
Which, it felt almost like I was watching Jujutsu Kaisen all of a sudden. I was like, no, this is sad. People were memeing the hell out of that episode because they were used to like the teenage hijinks and
and the silly alien stuff and
he's running fast and now they're naked and like all that.
Now they're talking about a weenie.
And all that funny stuff, and all of a sudden it got real serious and they were like, I'm broken. And I love that. I love that freedom to be whatever you want to be, in a narrative.
I think part of what makes it unique is that, like, it fits into so many genres, but it actually does it well.
Yeah.
You know, nothing feels disjointed.
Yeah.
They're somehow able to blend a bunch of genres in a way that I'm not used to seeing all of those genres blended like that.
It's a remarkable show.
It is.
It really is great.
Yeah.
But it's number 3.
It's number 3.
So number 2, which by the way, may have been number 3, but I gave it to Anna.
Hey.
Because, you want to know why? Because I'm kind of an awkward guy. What's number 2?
Number 2 is Apothecary Diaries.
Yes.
Apothecary Diaries was one that when we watched it, we were blown away.
Yeah.
The storytelling is incredible. The animation is beautiful. The story is just one that it's just so interesting. It's fascinating. Your main character is fascinating. It's almost a procedural like cop show in a lot of ways, while taking place in a fictionalized like feudal China.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, that's the thing. It's so complex. So, like you said, it essentially takes place in the imperial era of China, but it's fictionalized. And your main character, she is the daughter of the local apothecary. Mm-hmm. And in the first episode, she gets kidnapped, which generally speaking, when a young girl gets kidnapped in almost any narrative, it's like the scariest thing. But she just gets kidnapped and just kind of sold to the palace to be a worker.
Yeah. And the main character, Mao Mao, it's also interesting the way that she handles it.
Yeah.
You know? Because she gets sold and she's just like, gonna keep my head down.
Yeah.
Not gonna make a splash, not gonna make waves. It's gonna be the most normal, average, unremarkable person I can. I'm gonna do laundry until the time is up and I can leave this place and go back to my apothecary dad.
She totally rolls with the punches. Yeah, she does. In a way, because she's smart, because she knows that the way this world works is if she offends anyone of the noble class, she could be decapitated.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in the first episode, there's some sort of mystery that happens. And she realizes really quickly, I think someone's poisoned. Mm-hmm. And she realizes really quickly, what the verdict is, because essentially she's a doctor.
Yeah.
Being the daughter of an apothecary who's the best apothecary and being working with him for years, she understands science in a way that most of these people don't.
Yeah.
She didn't do what you said she was trying to do, which keep her head down.
Yeah, and she tried to sneakily, solve the problem for them, but they figured out who solved the problem.
Yeah.
And they found her and they're like, you're helping out the higher ups now.
Yeah, and essentially she becomes one of the handmaidens to one of the main concubines in the palace, and that's sort of where the adventure starts.
Yeah.
Mao Mao has a really interesting background.
Yeah, so like you said, she grew up as the daughter of an apothecary, learning all of this medical trade, but where she lived was in the red light district.
Yes.
And the working girls of the district, they took her on as their little sister.
Yeah.
And, so she, was always apothecary, never, worked, in the red light district in that way, but she knows, she has all of this unique knowledge from the brothels.
Yes. No one really expects much of her except for this royal eunuch who is essentially kind of in charge of the area that the concubines are.
And it's funny because, like I said, it almost plays out like a procedural cop drama because he's sort of in charge of that, but he has to be the one that's solving mysteries and stuff. And so she's the consultant. She's the Sherlock Holmes that comes in as the consultant to the cop that is helping solve the crime. The source material for it are novels.
Yeah.
It's a series of novels, and so there's these really complex stories, and the characters are really really well conceived, really well thought out because there's deep backstory that you're able to do in novels, and so you can feel the deep backstory. You can feel how well crafted the characters are in every episode. Mao Mao and Jinshi, watching their relationship bloom, watching the way that they perceive each other, the way that they work together, and the way that there's clearly romance going on, or romantic feelings building. But what could even become of that? Learning about the mysteries behind each one, their own histories, their own unique histories. This is one of those shows. Part of the reason that I thought this deserved to be number 2, besides the fact that it's beautiful, the stories are incredibly well written.
Yeah.
Every episode is
kind of a gem. Huh?
But it's also one that I think people that don't watch anime, that aren't into anime, I think it's one that people can really get into even if they have no interest in anime because like I said, it does have that feeling like Bones. It does have that feeling like Sherlock.
Yeah.
You know, it's just so well constructed and the animation is also beautiful.
I totally agree. I mean, this season had at least 3 episodes that I was just like totally touched by. I was just like, it was so well written. It was so about like a deeper thing, you know, like I think the reason this edged out is there was one episode of Dan Da Dan that had something that was deeper than what they were showing. And I was like, what? And it was that episode 7 everyone loved. But I feel like Apothecary Diaries deals with that much more.
Yeah.
It deals with some real human stuff, some dark stuff, some uplifting stuff, some real like stuff that you're going to carry with you in a very mature way, in a way that's way more mature than almost any of the anime that we tend to watch. And I felt like that for me was made it so worth the ride and so excited, especially for someone like me who, you know, generally speaking, I want to watch Windbreaker. I want to watch like kids punch each other. I want to watch like Kamehamehas. I want to watch like fighting demons.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's like a girl in a palace and like she's solving like crimes using botany knowledge. Like I don't care about that. And then I was just like so into it, so much so that like I remember by the time we had like 5 episodes left, every time I was like, oh no, we only have 5 episodes left. Oh no, we only have 4 episodes left. Oh no. Like it felt like I was losing every time I only had a few left because I was enjoying it so much. Yeah. I didn't want it to end. It also works in that really great way that a lot of TV shows work where like every episode lives by itself, it's its own interesting story, but it all also works together in this greater arc.
Absolutely.
That sort of teaches us more about Mao Mao's life, more about the overall mystery of what's going on, the politics. Yeah. It's good. It's really good.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
We made it.
Oh.
Number one.
Number one.
Best new anime of 2024. What was it, Anna?
Frieren Beyond Journey's End.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
This show was so great.
So something really special.
It was like, this was one that I was like, okay, this is good. And people were like, this is great. And I was like, okay. And I started it and you just knew once when that first episode, you're like, this is special.
Yeah.
I think that my nephew Max actually was the person who first told us about this. And I think it really goes to show that something that's effective for a teenage boy also would be effective to 2 adults.
Yeah.
And it's and I think a lot of it is just because it holds the medium of anime to such high regard that it is telling these beautiful, whimsical stories that it's not just that they're adult, it's that they're for everybody.
Yeah.
They're like legendary stories. To me, it's not like the packaging of Lord of the Rings, but it feels like the point of Lord of the Rings.
I totally agree with you. I think it's also just so fascinating because you watch most of these shows and the point is like, we have to go defeat the big bad.
Yeah.
And the point of Frieren, it's beyond the journey's end. Yeah. They defeated the big bad.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean there aren't still battles out there, but there is no more Demon King to defeat.
The show is about this elf character named Frieren, and she was part of this group of heroes who defeated the Demon Lord, and then she decided, I'm just going to go off by myself. And then she returns, 60, 80 years later, maybe?
The first time is 50.
Yeah.
And you've got an immortal character. Your main character is going to live forever. She watches as people she knew, that she worked with, that she cared about for whatever period of time, watches them grow old, while she stays exactly the same.
Yeah.
And seeing her become more human, to see her, learn more about herself, to realize that there was a 10-year span of her immortal life that actually seemed to mean more to her than any other span of her life. there's such meaning in so much of the show.
Her life isn't just her walking around finding spells and, you know, while humans do their own thing. Her life is intertwined with these people. Her life, you know, those moments she had with her original team are the most important moments in her life, but something that she didn't really get. It's funny. It's like it is as if, you know, it's almost like the idea is like, well, what happened if like Legolas, you know, came back years later? But Legolas understood the relationship. Well, it's almost like if Spock was immortal, you know, and he was like, oh yeah, like that time of the Enterprise actually was the best part of my life. Somebody who like is detached from everyone else's reality and is slowly starting to like, oh no, you know, I actually know this was really important. And I love the way that the show tells the story, because essentially in the first episode we see her original group, and then we see them older, and then she builds this new group. But as she builds this new group with this, you know, young wizard named Fern and this, you know, adventurer named Stark, she has aspects of time with them. And then it cuts to like aspects of time with her original group and it compares them. She's like able to reflect and realize maybe something she didn't understand before.
She's able to take new meaning from things, and it's just the storytelling, the way, like you said, the way that it juxtaposes the current story with the past. It's done so beautifully. And the way that you see her react when she learns something it makes you emotional. There's so many moments in this that truly draw emotion out, and you're fascinated by it. I think it's after the big bad was defeated. Like you think, okay, well, does that mean it's boring? No, it does. Like there's still action, but that's not what it's about.
No, but there is a lot of great action, you know, and there's a lot of great like a lot of the episodes remind me of some of our favorite parts of like Elder Scrolls or like The Witcher, you know, where you have these like interesting like missions with these interesting characters and these towns, and you know, they're really they're just really great.
The Witcher I think is like perfect like analog, because I remember when we were playing Witcher 3, and it's like we're like, okay, we're off to do this quest, and you just keep getting distracted. Oh, a ghost? Yes, we will follow. Like, we will follow you to find out. Like that happens so often in Frieren.
Yeah, it's so whimsical. Like it's the only anime series that I've seen that when I was watching, I was thinking like, this reminds me of Miyazaki. This reminds me of a Miyazaki film that happens to be like 12, or I can't remember how many episodes the first season was. It's like between 12 and 16, I think. And that's saying a lot, because that's not something most of these reach. And I also love that Frieren is like, she's our lead, but she's not necessarily like, she's not a hero in a way that you're used to. She's not, she's actually literally the opposite of a Luffy or a Naruto. She doesn't want to be the king of anything. At most she wants to be the king of having like spell books. But that's kind of it. And I love the fact that she's constantly getting like caught by, what are those treasure chest things?
Oh, mimics. The mimics. I mean, because what if they have an interesting spell book? She's got to check, you know? It might end up being a mimic. It might be a chest. It's always worth checking.
I love that Fern, this teenage girl that she's sort of taken into her party, that she kind of helped sort of part raise, is almost more of her mother than she is to her, even though Frieren is 800, 1,000 years old, something like that. It's really special. It's a really good show. When the action happens, it's badass and awesome. But even when it doesn't happen, it's not even that necessary. It's funny. It's one of those few shows that like, when there's no action, I still love it. And when there is action, I love it. Like there's no times I think I ever felt bored or uninterested or didn't care. Like when they introduce like the demons later in the show and they start fighting, it's so great. You know, even when they're like doing something like as innocuous as like clearing the beach, you know, of wreckage, there's just something about the show that it's like entrancing, and you love the characters, and you love the journey. And I am such a Himmel stan.
Yeah.
Like Himmel
the hero.
he makes me so happy, and every memory she has of him makes me so happy. And
the way that it's also like it's makes you both happy, but it's also so depressing because you watch like him pining over Furin, and she doesn't know at all. She doesn't get it at all, and there's something kind of heartbreaking about it, but she's immortal. It could have never really been.
Yeah, but it's also like really romantic, right? It's really romantic in a way that I think is goes beyond a lifespan.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what this show's about too. It's about like what is important in life, what
transcends like beyond a person's life.
Yeah, no. So there we go. So Frieren Beyond Journey's End is our best new anime of 2024. 2024 is a great year, thanks to all the lovely people in Japan that work in the animation studios that made this happen.
Thanks to everyone that recommended some of these anime to us.
Yes.
What ones that we don't have on the list do you think were in the top 10, or do you agree with our list here?
Yeah. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.